Everyone thinks they're doing okay financially. You pay your bills. You save a little. You're not reckless. So you assume you're on track. But here's the problem. You're not losing money in big, obvious ways. You're losing it in places that feel completely normal. Daily, quietly, repeatedly. And over time, those normal expenses don't just cost you thousands. They cost you millions. Not because they're expensive, but because of what they replace. Opportunity, time, compounding. So in this video, I'm going to break down 10 expenses that look completely harmless, but slowly destroy your financial future. And as we go, you're going to realize something uncomfortable. You're not behind because of what you don't know. You're behind because of what you've been told is normal. Let's start with number 10. Debt, subscription drift. It starts small. $9.99 here, $14.99 there. Streaming, apps, tools you might use, doesn't feel like a problem. That's the point. Because individually, it's nothing. But stacked, it's a leak you don't even notice. $100 a month becomes $200 a year. Sounds manageable, right? Not exactly. Because it's not just $200. It's what that money could have become, invested over 20 years. That's not a subscription problem. That's a 5-figure opportunity cost. And here's the deeper issue. Subscriptions aren't about utility. They're about passive consumption identity. You're paying to stay entertained, not to move forward. And that leads to the next one. 9. Convenient spending. Food delivery, ride sharing, paying extra to save time. Feels smart, efficient, even productive. But here's where people go wrong. You're not buying convenience. You're buying default behavior, because convenience removes friction. And friction is what makes you think. Without it, you stop questioning. Fodder delivery fee, $10 surge pricing, $15 just this once. Now multiply that over years. And suddenly, you didn't just spend more. You trained yourself to choose the easy option every time. And that's dangerous. Because wealth doesn't come from ease. It comes from intentional decisions. Which brings us to something even more subtle. 8. Upgrading too early. New phone. Better laptop. Nicer setup. Nothing extreme. Just upgrades. Feels like progress. Feels like reward. But here's the problem. You're upgrading your lifestyle faster than you're upgrading your income engine. And that gap, that's where wealth dies. Because every upgrade locks in a new baseline. Now you need more money just to feel normal. And over time, you're not growing. You're maintaining. And maintenance is expensive, which leads to the next mistake. 7. The affordable car trap. You did the math. Monthly payment fits your budget. Insurance, manageable. Fuel, fine. So you tell yourself, I can afford it. Sounds responsible. But here's the problem. Affordability is a short-term calculation. Wealth is a long-term system. That car isn't just costing you monthly payments. It's costing you lost investments, depreciation, psychological attachment to status. Because once you drive it, you don't want to go backward. So now, you're locked in. Not financially, mentally. And that's where it gets dangerous. 6. Eating your future, lifestyle inflation. You earn more, so naturally. You spend more, better food, better places, better experiences. Nothing wrong with that, right? Not exactly. Because your spending isn't increasing randomly. It's increasing proportionally to your identity. You're not asking, can I afford this long term? You're asking, does this match who I am now? And that question is expensive. Because every time your income rises, your expenses rise with it. So your life looks better, but your wealth stays flat. And that leads to the most invisible cost so far. At this point, it might feel like this video is about spending. It's not. It's about how you think about money, because none of these expenses are extreme. They're normal. Everyone does them. That's the problem. You're not being careless. You're being conditioned. Conditioned to upgrade, consume, stay comfortable. And slowly, without realizing it, you build a life that looks stable, but has no financial momentum. So now, let's go deeper, because the next ones, they don't just cost money. They change who you become. For 5, social spending pressure. You go out, you split the bill, you match the energy. You don't want to be the cheap one, so you spend, not for value, but for belonging. And here's the truth. You don't spend money, you spend identity. Because every time you match someone else's lifestyle, you're accepting their financial standard, not yours. And over time, you lose control, quietly. Because now your spending is no longer based on your goals. It's based on your environment. And environments are powerful. They normalize what you never questioned. Which brings us to something even more dangerous. 4. Paying for the image. Nice apartment, good clothes, clean aesthetic. You look put together, successful, stable, and that feels good. But here's the hidden cost. You're investing in how your life looks instead of how it actually functions, because image spending has no return. It doesn't compound. It doesn't grow. It just maintains perception. And perception is expensive, because once you build an image, you have to sustain it. And sustaining an image costs more than building wealth, which leads to a brutal realization. 3. The I deserve this loop. You work hard. You're stressed. You've been disciplined. So you tell yourself, I deserve this. And sometimes you do. But here's where it breaks. That logic becomes a pattern, a reward system, and eventually, an identity. Now every expense is justified. Every purchase has a reason, and your spending becomes emotion-driven, not strategy-driven. And that's a trap, because emotions don't compound. They reset. So you keep chasing the feeling, while your financial position stays the same, or worse. And now, we're getting into the most expensive mistakes. Darker 2, delaying real investing. You say you'll start soon, when things are more stable, when income increases, when life settles down. Sounds reasonable. But here's the truth. Delay is the most expensive decision you can make, because investing isn't about money. It's about time exposure. The earlier you start, the less you need. The later you start, the more pressure you create. And most people don't realize this until it's too late. Because the cost of waiting is invisible at first, but exponential later. You're not just missing gains, you're losing years of compounding. And that loss, you can't recover it. Which brings us to the final one, the most dangerous, the one that ties everything together. One of living without a financial system. No plan, no structure, no intentional design. Just reacting, earning, spending, saving what's left. Feels normal, because that's how most people live. But here's the reality. If you don't control your money, your environment will, and your environment is designed to make you spend, not build. So without a system, every decision becomes emotional. Every month becomes random. And every year looks the same. No real progress. No real growth. Just motion. And motion feels like progress. But it's not. Because you're not building wealth. You're maintaining survival. So here's the uncomfortable truth. None of these expenses will ruin you overnight. That's why they're dangerous. They work slowly, quietly, consistently, until one day, you look back and realize, you didn't lose money, you lost time. And time is the only thing that compounds into millions. But this isn't the biggest problem. Because even if you remove these expenses, there's something deeper still holding people back. Something most people never notice. And it's the reason they stay stuck, even when they earn more. That's what I break down in the next video. Top 10 ways you're delaying wealth without realizing. Because what's costing you money isn't always what you think. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.